Hello, this is Fanfiction Spot coming with another part of What If Naruto Had a Gaming System or Solo Leveling. Please like and subscribe, and without any delay let's get started. Chapter 15, System Update. The next day, Hokage's office, Hokage Tower. This is the result of the interrogations conducted by myself, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Mitarashi Anko, Hokage-sama. Ibiki stated as he placed a pair of scrolls on the desk. One of them spilled his guts before I could even do more than mildly threaten him. With the information I got from him, I was able to authorize the use of the Yamanaka clan's mind-reading techniques. The scarred man regretted the fact that it was illegal to use the Yamanaka clan's Hihatsu on Konoha citizens with only the suspicion of wrongdoing or even minor misdemeanors. And unfortunately, civilians and retired shinobi trespassing into a Category 1 restricted areas, open to all active shinobi but not civilians or retired shinobi, without permission, was only a misdemeanor. Using a jutsu in a public place was another offense, but since the Kekai ninjutsu they'd used only kept people in or out without doing any damage, it was catalogued as a misdemeanor on the same lines as disturbing the public peace. Taken on their own, both actions were fairly minor crimes that would have resulted in the group only facing fines and possibly a few days in holding cells, if someone hadn't spilled the beans anyway. But since one of them had sung like the proverbial canary, Ibiki could, and had, used that confession to use the skill of Inoichi to parse through the minds of the other 13 members of the Spandex Brigade. He had to credit the boy for his to-the-point nomenclature, and find out exactly what they were up to. Sarutobi folded his hands on his desk. And the summary. All 14 are guilty of premeditated attempted murder against one Uzumaki Naruto. The scarred Takujo stated simply, his tone containing no emotion, merely reciting the facts as they had been discovered, as well as numerous cases of minor harassment, intimidation, and price gouging of the same individual. It's only a shame that they aren't active duty ninja, so we can't simply court-martial them. There was a touch of disdain added to that final sentence. The Hokage privately agree with Ibiki's opinion, but unlike Danzo, he respected the rule of law and didn't twist it to suit his vengeful vendetta, particularly when Naruto hadn't received anything worse than a few scratches from the encounter. If they had managed to seriously harm Naruto, on the other hand, he would have given Mitarashi Anko free rein to use them as instructional test dummies for the newest recruits in TNI. She had been asking for some prisoners to practice on recently and, shaking himself out of the wistful daydream, Sarutobi nodded at Ibiki. Good work. Now, how to punish them? There's enough evidence to send them to the Broken Branch, Ibiki suggested absently. The Broken Branch was the civilian equivalent to the Konoha Strict Correctional Facility, where ninja cases severe enough to warrant imprisonment outside of Konoha itself, yet mild enough to not warrant being sent to the Hojokijo or executed, were imprisoned. Whereas the KSCF was in the middle of an active volcano, the Broken Branch was in the middle of the largest lake in Hinokuni, as the water-walking exercise was usually beyond the skills of even chakra-active civilians. True. Sarutobi nodded magnanimously, and for the civilians among them that will probably be the best idea, but a third of them are retired shinobi, which would make escape a definite possibility. The head of TNI snorted. He sincerely doubted that any of the Spandex Brigade, he made a note to have that nickname appended to their files, could water walk more than 2 steps without losing concentration and taking a swim. Then again, when one was locked in prison, training would likely be one of the few things one could do to pass the time, and even the most out-of-shape retiree was a danger to any other civilian contained in the prison. And their crimes are just barely mild enough to not warrant the KSCF. Plus, in their current shape, I doubt they'd survive the conditions it would put them in. The Hokage mused. Hojokijo is of course out of the question, and the internal prison cells are somewhat full at the moment with former members of the Civilian Council, at least until their crimes are fully processed and they can be transferred to the Broken Branch themselves. Ibiki smirked grimly with satisfaction. The retired members of the Civilian Council had thought that their little schemes were all buried and hidden from prying eyes. Well, the ninja counselors had been more than happy to carry out a bit of forensic paperwork and, wouldn't you know it, there was a positive plethora of crimes committed by the former members of the Civilian Council: double book accounting, bribery, embezzlement of public funds, and other varied and distasteful crimes. It was actually a bit surprising that they'd managed to get away with it for so long. Ibiki personally blamed it on both the chaos surrounding the long-term effects of rebuilding after QB attack nearly leveled the village, and the focus that was put on keeping an eye out for outside threats after the Hyaga incident. If you focus too much on watching for enemies at the gates, you tend to miss the ones forming within the walls. Then there were the cream of the crop, the conspiracy charges. Conspiracy to undermine the strength of the weapon of the Konohagakure shinobi forces, otherwise known as the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune, Uzumaki Naruto. He thought to himself grimly. While he wasn't a fan of classifying the boy, or any of his fellow shinobi, as if they were a mindless tool, it was what the paperwork required in order to get what needed done. That and there was a bit of poetic irony at getting the people that had refused to treat the kid as a human being by classifying him as something else. After all, military assets were incredibly important to a shinobi village's survival, and sabotaging them was a capital offense. He wondered how those fat and arrogant former counselors would appreciate a life sentence to Spartan quarters and bland food. Not well, he knew. In an unrelated development, the few remaining troublesome elements on council had hunkered down, likely hoping to wait out the storm. There are still free cells in the maximum security wing, he pointed out. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. The ones designed for A-rank ninja that are suspended above a pit of fire and where the occupants are fed via random duct chutes. Yes. As much as I am tempted to allow it, I cannot. The old man sighed regretfully. Still, I think I can throw together a prison convoy sooner rather than later. Say 2 days. But where to keep them until the former council members are moved? I could see my way to keeping them in T&I. Ibiki offered with a slight shrug. If it's just for 2 or 3 days. Business is slow. That would be very good of you, Ibiki-kun. Sarutobi smiled. Make sure Anko-chan knows that they aren't for her to practice on. Hi. The Takujo nodded. Anko would pout and complain, but he had long years of practice at ignoring her antics to draw on. How's the kid? He was unharmed by either the chakra mutations or the spandex brigade. Sarutobi answered with a sigh. I gave him a B-rank futon jutsu as a reward for doing well, although he was irritated that all of his hard work in training ground 13 was negated thanks to a bunch of idiots wearing spandex, to use his own words. Ibiki nodded absently. It was a perfectly understandable response to having several months' worth of effort undone in less than a day, particularly when it's due to someone else interfering. He still plans to tackle it again. Of course. The Hokage smiled at the memory of the determined set to his surrogate grandson's jaw as he declared his intent to conquer the 13th training ground. Once Naruto-kun sets his mind to something, it is very, very rare that he is dissuaded or prevented from accomplishing it. It's a good trait to have in a shinobi. A lot of the brats these days don't have the grit needed to keep to it. Ibiki agreed absently. With your permission, I had better be getting back to TNI. Anko will be getting antsy by now. By all means. Sarutobi nodded. The last time Anko got antsy, she went on a sake and dango binge that took 3 of her monthly paychecks to cover. As Ibiki left the office, Sarutobi regretfully returned his attention to his never-to-be-sufficiently bedamned paperwork. He longed for the chance to sit back and read one of Jiraiya-kun's masterpieces, Ika Ika, but the necessities of this damn job prevented him from doing so until after lunch, at the earliest. Uzumaki Naruto's apartment, Amakage Apartments. A single eyebrow twitched as one Uzumaki Naruto stared at the display in front of him, which persistently insisted that there was still a good 6 hours left before the update was complete, whatever a system update was when it was at home. Aig. He groaned, what a pain in the ass. Looking around his living room, he got up and padded, dressed in his relatively new training clothes, into a modestly sized room that had been the smaller bedroom of the apartment. He had converted it into a sort of armory shortly after moving in. All of his kunao and shuriken were stored here, when he wasn't at the academy or in a training ground, which freed up room in his inventory. Also there was an older mannequin that had what Tenten and her father referred to as the storm armor on it. Naruto had placed the updated armored shoulder pad atop the top section after he had received it from the weapons mad girl. He had to admit that the dark royal blue of the suit looked intimidating. He doubted that he'd bother with the suit for the lowly D ranks that would make up the majority of a genin's early introduction to the life of a shinobi. He'd noticed several groups of genin running around doing various chores while being supervised by a jonin and had, thanks to his boosted int, connected the dots. Thank you, gamer. He'd have to find a suitable D-rank outfit, which required another visit to the Higurashi store at some point. After accidentally calling Tenten Tenchan the previous day, he was a bit worried about that. Girls, in his experience, hated it when you called them by a nickname that they hadn't given you permission to use. Resting on a rack next to the suit were Sumire and Sabeki, his dual Tonto. He was still only level 14 thanks to the stupid update, and he wanted to use them in anger, against actual enemies rather than target-kun dummies. He stared longingly at them before sighing and heading to practice his funjutsu and calligraphy. 6 hours of practice later. Ding! Looking up from a stack of Type 1 storage scrolls that he had churned out in the past few hours, Naruto grinned as he saw a screen appear with 2 simple words on it. Update complete. Finally. He yelled and pressed the screen, making it disappear and another one appear in its place. Thank you for your patience. The gamer has finished updating. Any changes relevant to you are listed below. Jutsu that have been fully leveled or are level 80 plus can now be invoked without vocal intonation. It will add 10 CP to the chakra cost, however. You will now be assigned up to 5 daily quests each day. Completion of these quests before the end of the day grants you a cash reward in addition to the quest rewards, as well as a 10% chance at receiving a rare jutsu, weapon, or item of clothing at the end of the week if all 7 days worth of daily quests are completed. Random encounters will now be further randomized, with random numbers of monsters depending on your level. The actions of the Spandex Brigade have raised the levels at Training Ground 13 to account for your current strength. As this is through no fault of your own, your level cap has been raised to level 17 until you graduate as an apology. The relationship system has been updated, with females possessing a heart next to their names that will be colored to indicate their affection for you. Black for negative feelings, gray for neutral feelings, blue for positive feelings, and pink for romantic feelings. Additionally, if that person is in love with you, the heart will expand and contract slowly. Note that the color indicates only the general area of the person's feelings for you, not the exact level. For that, please regard the relationship screen. At the end of the day, you will be shown a list of all levels earned in skills and jutsu on that day. This is to allow you to gain an overall grasp of your leveling habits. A copy of all jutsu that you know has been placed in your inventory so you can find them and then inform the Hokage. These duplicates cannot be absorbed to learn a jutsu or improve your understanding of the jutsu. This will also be done for all future jutsu that you learn. Naruto whistled. Those were some impressive updates. He didn't understand why the entire gamer needed to be disabled to have all of these updates put in, as it had that auto-update thingy, didn't it? Meh. Didn't matter. Closing the window, an eyebrow twitched as yet another window popped up in its place. Calculating levels gained over the last 12 hours. Reading Konohagaku Core IDOS logs. Reading activity logs of designate Uzumaki Naruto, the gamer. Calculating accumulated experience. Estimating levels. Done. Calligraphy has gained 2 levels. Basic Fuinjutsu has gained 2 levels. Cooking has gained a level. Detect Bloodlust has gained a level. Intermediate Heikage Taijutsu has gained a level. Observe has gained a level. Futon, Senfukyo has gained a level. Doton, Gansatsukan has gained a level. Holy crap. Naruto whistled. Now that's impressive. Oh, the Jutsuji gave me yesterday. Stampeding into his bedroom, he grabbed the scroll from where he'd left it resting on his nightstand and grinned as the usual window popped up. You have acquired the Futon, Fujinhiki Jutsu scroll. Do you wish to learn this? Note, you are now limited to learning 3 jutsu per day. Regular skills are not limited in this manner. A duplicate will be placed in your inventory. YN. Amen. Naruto complained before shrugging. He couldn't actually remember ever getting more than 3 jutsu scrolls a day anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal at the moment. With that thought in his mind, he hit the Y button. As always, it was a beautiful sight to see the scroll dissolve into blue shards and spiral around his body before vanishing inside his chest, but he also saw a tendril of blue shards entering a space that he usually pulled his inventory items from to his right. Huh. You have learned Futon, Fujinhiki. Futon, Fujinhiki, active, LV1, 00.00. Wind Style. Wind Blade Wall is an advanced application of wind elemental manipulation that initially creates a wall made from condensed wind in front of the user. This is one of the wall techniques, with the others being Doton, Dori-Yuhki, Suten, Sujinhiki and Katon, Kari-Yuhki. There is no wall technique for Raiden Jutsu. With time and experience, the user can strengthen the wall and even make it cut anyone or anything that touches it with thousands of wind blades that run across its surface, as well as erecting it anywhere within the user's line of sight. Hand signs, Dragonbird Dragonrat Dragonbird. Range, 1 meter from user. Creates a meter-long, foot-wide and meter-tall wall of wind between the user and the enemy. Has 55 durability points. Weak against Katon Jutsu, doubling the damage of any such jutsu that passes through it. Very effective against Raiden Jutsu. Damage suffered from such jutsu reduced by half. Costs 67 CP to activate and 14 CP per minute to maintain. Naruto winced a bit as the amount of knowledge needed for the powerful wind jutsu flowed into his mind and caused a mild headache. This was only the second B-rank jutsu he had ever learned, so it wasn't all that surprising that learning the details of such a powerful jutsu would cause a bit of pain, at least until he got used to it. I can't wait to give this a try. Naruto grinned, but first, he pulled out a few scroll racks and stacked the scrolls from his inventory on them, with a rack dedicated to each level of jutsu. The E-rank scrolls held the Henge, Nawanuke, Kawarimi, and Kakurimi no jutsu, with most of the rest falling into the C-rank jutsu section. He idly wondered why more jutsu weren't in the D-rank section as he placed his 2 B-ranks in their rack. Quite a few seemed underpowered to be C-rank, but he recalled that power wasn't solely what determined jutsu rankings. There was also chakra consumption, chakra control requirements, adaptability, and other criteria that determined the rank of a jutsu. Okay, destructive power was a pretty big benchmark of the rank of a jutsu, ninjutsu anyway, but Naruto had learned of the other ways people used when ranking jutsu. Well then, let's go and see how different the training ground is. The blonde orphan muttered and headed for his armory. He grabbed his kunai holster and filled it with projectiles, live ones, before turning to regard Sabeki and Sumair. As he wasn't an actual ninja yet, he legally couldn't walk around with weapons strapped to him, aside from kunai and shuriken. But the loophole was quite simple. Storage scrolls. He grabbed his tanto and sealed them inside a scroll, sliding it inside his lesser Fujin jacket's pocket before heading out. The glares from the civilian populace had increased, which was a scary thing to happen considering they had been on death glares beforehand. Naruto could almost feel his detect bloodlust skills EXP bar rising like a barometer in the desert at midday. Gotta love the wonderful glares from those ever so lovable civilians. He smirked to himself. Naruto knew that his bloodthirst detection skill had saved his ass several times and that the civilians glaring at him had helped to level it up quite nicely. Those little nuggets of information would probably give any and all of those who glared at him a heart attack. The smug grin on his face made several of those people glaring at him redouble their glares in fury. Detect bloodlust has leveled up. LV9, LV10. Hehehe. Irony, you are a wonderful bitch sometimes, particularly when you're on my side. Naruto thought to himself as he purposely added a little skip to his step, wondering absently just how much extra skill grinding he could pull out of this. Gate into Training Ground 13. Naruto's eyebrow twitched as he heard the snarls of monsters inside the training ground. He was really hoping that his Jiji punished those morons of the Spandex Brigade for undoing all of his hard work on the training ground, and even ended up making it worse. Reaching out, Naruto tapped the gate and made the window appear. Reading it made him growl in irritation. Training Area 13. Which area do you want to enter? Area 1, LV12+. Area 2, LV13+. Area 3, LV14+. Area 4, LV15+. Area 5, LV16+. Area 6, LV17+. Area 7, LV19+. Area 8, LV20+. Area 9, LV21+. Area 10, LV22+. Area 11, LV24+. Area 12, LV25+. Area 13, LV27+. The levels of the individual areas hadn't just gone up, they'd shot up like weeds. Area 13 had previously been restricted to level 20 and over, and now it was level 27 and over. Gah, he was going to have to prank someone when he got out of this place just to blow off some steam, he was so pissed. Gamer's mind activated? Calmly does it, calmly does it. He chanted to himself as his temper was forcefully brought to heel. Say what you will, but that power was just too damn useful at times. Reaching out, he jabbed Area 1, and the gate creaked open, just as eerily as it had done the first time. Squaring his shoulders and palming a handful of shuriken in each hand, Naruto advanced into the first sub-area. In terms of appearance, the forest hadn't changed, but the atmosphere was slightly oppressive. He could almost feel the malice coming from the chakra mutations in the place. Okay, so the original monsters here were squirrels. He muttered as he advanced, wonder if that's different now. Skirting around the trees, Naruto spotted an iron-banded wooden chest sitting at the base of an especially thick tree that he could have sworn hadn't been there the last time he'd been through the sub-area. Evidently the chakra saturation had mutated some of the trees as well now. Cautiously approaching the chest, the blonde boy barely touched it when his detect bloodthirst skill screamed at him to dodge to the left. Throwing himself to the side, Naruto gaped at what had lunged at him. It was, superficially, a rabid red squirrel, except it was as large as the more powerful gnashing gray squirrels and had several bone plates across its body that seemed to act like armor in addition to the razor-sharp claws and fangs. LV12 Ravening Rabid Red Squirrel. So the monsters getting powered up added a word to their names? Weird. With a roll, a jump, and 2 well-trained flicks of his wrists, Naruto pelted the squirrel with 10 shuriken all at once from a meter in the air, something he had never tried before. Usually it was only 3 shuriken per hand, not 5, so he was looking forward to seeing if he developed a skill from it. He could have tried to create it at the shuriken jutsu range at his apartment building, but he had discovered that it took ages to make a skill using repeated actions outside of combat, whereas in the heat of combat, they developed in a few fights, which could be as short as 10 minutes or as long as an hour. The threat of being harmed by the chakra mutations was somehow not a concern for Naruto. The giant chakra mutation, now the size of a large dog, shrieked as several of the metal-throwing stars pelted its body, sinking deep into its flesh. Once it recovered, it glared at Naruto and bared its fangs before pouncing at him claws first. Drawing a pair of kunai, Naruto danced around the mutation, scoring cut after cut on it while avoiding the swipes of its claws and froth-filled mouth. Although it did score a couple of glancing blows on him, the ravening rabid red squirrel finally fell, covered in cuts. You have defeated a ravening rabid red squirrel. You gain 300 EXP. As a result of a specific action, you have learned the Cluster Throw skill. Cluster Throw, active, LV1, 00.00. Throw enough mud at a wall, and some of it will stick. That is the basis behind this little technique. It is only usable with shuriken and kunao. By throwing 5 shuriken/kunao from each hand, you can deal great damage to the enemy. While it is possible to combine this technique with quick draw techniques, it is impossible to gain the full effect from them without possessing a holster on each leg. 50% chance to fumble the shuriken. Adds +2 to the damage of each shuriken that strikes its target. User suffers from an aim penalty of -5 to hit at long and medium ranges. As a result of repeated actions, you have learned the Short Blades Mastery skill. Short Blades Mastery, passive, LV1, 00.00. A short blade is defined as any bladed weapon the length of a tanto or shorter. These weapons include tanto, yoroidashi, kabutori, kaiken, and kunao. All of these weapons are seen as being weak or useless compared with larger weapons, such as swords, spears or even maces, but in the hands of a master, these short weapons can be just as deadly. Adds +1 to all damage dealt by the user while wielding short blades. All skills involving short-bladed weapons have a 5% higher experience gain. The chance of learning skills involving short blades is raised by 10% while wielding them. Okay, this is so damn cool. Naruto grinned. Now what's in this chest? Opening it was rather interesting. Golden light shone from the contents for a moment before dimming and fading away, revealing a belt with a bronze circular buckle, a stack of Ryo notes and a necklace shaped like a biwa. Belt of lesser improved muscular regeneration. Accessory. A belt that uses a cunning application of funjutsu to enhance the growth and development of the user's muscles. At least that was attempted. What the creator of this item actually got was a belt that improved the regeneration of the muscles after exertion. Needless to say, he wasn't happy about creating this by accident, but it still sold well. His naming sense sucked though. 60/60ths. While worn, the user's training to do with STR has an increased effect, improving by 25%. Charm of Benzaden. Accessory. Benzaden, commonly known as Benton of the Seven Lucky Gods, is commonly depicted with a musical instrument, typically either a biwa or a vina. This charm has been blessed by one of her priests and calls upon her aspect as a goddess of monetary fortune to bring about good luck in monetary gains. This effect raises the amount of money the wearer finds in treasure chests and from fallen monsters. Raises monetary loot from treasure chests and monsters by 10%. Useful. He commented as he pulled the necklace on and snapped the belt closed around his waist before picking up the cash, which looked a bit thicker than it did before he put the necklace on. You gain 450 Ryo? Well then, let's get to clearing out this area. Naruto grinned as he collected the loot from the fallen squirrel, just some Ryo. The act of clearing out the first sub-area of TG-13 was somewhat cathartic for Naruto, who was feeling more than slightly irritated at the Spandex Brigade's stupidity. Hadn't they ever been told not to use ninjutsu in a chakra-saturated area like TG-13 before? It boggled belief. He took down 3 more ravening rabid red squirrels in quick succession, suffering only minor wounds in doing so, about 50 HP all told. After he collected the loot from the last corpse, more Ryo, all he'd been getting from the squirrels, he suddenly found himself in the middle of a clearing and facing 3 chakra mutations, 2 ravening rabid red squirrels and what looked like a more heavily mutated version of the gnashing gray squirrel. This one had very large fangs and an equally large head to carry them. LV-13 Nasty Gnashing Gray Squirrel. What is with the alliterating naming sense here? Shaking off that thought, Naruto charged in with a kunao in each hand. With a snarl, the gray squirrel seemed to order the smaller red ones forward to countercharge him. Dodging 2 red squirrels at once was hard work, much harder than when he only had a single opponent. Fortunately for him, the chakra mutations had all the teamwork of a slab of butter and a saw, i.e. none whatsoever. This allowed him to make the 2 squirrels attack each other some of the time when they swiped and missed him. Eventually, Naruto managed to wear the 2 down and jam kunao into the back of their heads, killing them. He had a moment to bask in the glory before he got bowled over by the charge of the nasty gnashing gray squirrel. He was forced to leave his kunao in the heads of the ravening rabid red squirrels as he grappled with the gray monster, which was at least half again as big as its weaker companions. Get dash whack? Off dash wham? Of dash thwack? Me. Naruto roared as he punched the chakra mutation's throat multiple times to emphasize his words. At the last blow, the squirrel finally retreated back with a leap, spitting out flecks of blood that stained its massive teeth. Fuck this. Naruto growled and ran through some hand signs, futon, senfukyu. Bringing his right hand up to his mouth, he fired off 3 wind spheres at the squirrel. It managed to dodge 2, but the third slammed into its tail, severing it when the projectile detonated on impact. The wail of pain from the mutation was deafening. You have blown off a limb? Nasty gnashing gray squirrel is now suffering from the badly bleeding status. Naruto blinked at that. Last time he checked, spiraling wind sphere didn't do that? Making a note to check the entry for the jutsu later, the blonde orphan leapt over to the dead squirrels and ripped his kunao out of their skulls. A passive glance told him that they wouldn't be much good as thrown weapons thanks to the blood all over them. The red squirrels seemed to have developed some kind of thick, sticky blood that reduced the throwing damage of the weapons by quite a bit. That gave him an idea. Discarding them, the academy student ran through more hand signs. Suden Ninpo, Mizuami Bakujo. He spat a great wad of the sticky water at the squirrel, who was still shrieking in agony. The massive wad of sticky goop, about the size of a toddler, slammed into the face of the monster with a wet thud sound. With a muffled growl, the squirrel tried to bite through the taffy-like substance, only to find its jaws trapped in the goo. It then tried to tear the Mizuami Bakujo from its face, only to discover that doing so trapped its forepaws and left it all but helpless. Visions of all the pranks he could do with this stuff danced through Naruto's mind as he threw kunao and shuriken at the squirrel until it died. Oh boy, he was so looking forward to this. You have slain a nasty gnashing gray squirrel. You gain 450 EXP. You have leveled up. LV14 LV15. You have 5 attribute points to spend. Suden Ninpo, Mizuami Bakujo has leveled up. LV2 LV3. Futon, Senfukyu no Jutsu has leveled up. LV2 LV3. Shuriken Jutsu has gained a level. LV15 LV16. As a result of repeated actions, you have gained access to the evasion skill. Evasion, passive, LV4, 04.51. Being able to tank the attack of an opponent is all very well, but why do that if you don't have to? Dodge, swerve, evade and jump around your enemies as if they weren't even there? Passively raises the chance to evade the Taijutsu and Bukaijutsu attacks of the enemy by 24.5%. Passively raises the chance to evade the Shuriken Jutsu attacks of the enemy by 20%. Passively raises the chance to evade the ninjutsu attacks of the enemy by 15%. Finally, Naruto practically screamed in joy. Now he could finally wield his Tanto, and maybe his Greater Fujin t-shirt as well. Then, something occurred to him. Hey, wait a minute, why the hell did I only fight a gray squirrel? A window popped up right on cue. Chakra oversaturation. Due to the actions of the Spandex Brigade, the training ground has entered oversaturation mode. This means that the area is positively overflowing with chakra, mutating and empowering the denizens that dwell within it even more than a regular saturation would. In order to purge this sub-area of chakra for good, you must empty the sub-area of chakra mutations every day this week. Then, when you face the sub-area boss, you will eliminate the oversaturation and saturation effects for good. Or at least for another decade or so. Happy hunting? One of Naruto's eyes started to twitch rapidly. You have got to be shitting me.